now technology coordinator for your district, working with elementary schools, and that you're going to share a little bit about your journey. So we have 23 folks here in the room, principals, superintendents, 25 technology coordinators, teacher on special assignment, all sorts of folks. And so we're really happy and excited to just hear from you a little bit about your learning journey. So take it away.
Actually, one thing real quick. I'm sorry.
One thing real
quick. So in the Padlet,
yeah, they're doing Padlet to write down questions and comments.
All you do is you just double click into the Padlet anywhere, and then you can start typing. And what we ask that you do is just write your name so that we know who's making the comment, and then you can feel free to make any notes or comments or questions for Lynn, and then we'll get through them. I'm sorry, Lynn. Go ahead.
No, okay. Just a little Padlet intro. Okay.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad you're using a back channel. That's awesome. So thanks for having me today. Thanks for being patient. I updated my computer last week and didn't reinstall the Google plugin, so that's why there was no video, but here I am now. I'm really thankful for people like David and the organization that you have for taking the time to introduce school leaders to the idea of being connected in terms of what you're doing leadership-wise, your work with students and your work with staff on a daily basis. I can't overemphasize enough the incredible impact that being a connected educator has had on my practice. I know so many times we want, as school leaders, to see the data. We want to see the proof. We want to see the evidence of our efforts. And for me, I can pinpoint specific things in every single day of my practice that are the direct result of being a learner in this connected space. So I will say from the get-go that it's not something that happens immediately. You're not going to see the benefits overnight. It takes time and it takes dedication, but I think when your efforts are placed in the right spaces, the returns are incredible. And I had shared a post with David that I wrote on my blog a little while back called Effort In, Reward Out. And for me, when I talk with school leaders especially, I try to make them understand that it is a process and it is something that you do have to put effort into in order to reap those benefits. I work with a lot of school administrator teams, and we spend time doing things like talking about vision, talking about the steps moving forward, planning in terms of professional development and technology rollouts and things like that. But ultimately, it comes down to kind of the relationships that you build with people, the connections that you make, the networks that are formed as a result of those connections, and the construction of knowledge that you build together with those people. So David asked me to talk a little bit about my journey, and here it is, the end of 2014, and I really started on this journey about 5 years ago. It was November 2009 was the year that, and the month where I started blogging for the first time. So that's my first year as, actually it was the, 08-09 was my first year as principal, and I decided that I was going to blog every single day of the year as a first-year principal, so that by the end of the year, I would have this amazing kind of repository of the experiences and life and trials and tribulation of a first-year principal. And I did that because, well, I thought I was going to do that because I thought people would benefit from reading my experiences as a first-year principal. And I made it through, I think, 1 or 2 days where I actually found the chance to do that and just realized that as a new administrator, I was completely swamped. I was never going to be able to blog every day, and I just had to reevaluate where I wanted to go with it. And for me, blogging was a natural first step in my process because I enjoy writing. And I know not everyone does, but what I try to stress to people is that you need some kind of reflective outlet if you're going to develop yourself as a leader. And a blog is just such an easy space to do that in. Whether you choose to share it with other people or whether you just keep it private for you, blogging is the perfect venue to start reflecting on your ideas, on the things that you're reading, on the initiatives in your school, on your student-teacher development and how things are going. Blogging for me was an easy way to compile my thoughts around an issue, and then I chose to share it out with other people. So if you choose to keep it private, that's fine for you. But what you're missing out on are the comments and the feedback that you could receive from other educators who have experiences that could build upon yours, who can add to your thinking, who could push you in different directions and help you think differently about things. I've always worked in rural community settings in my school experiences. As a teacher, I taught 5th and 6th grade, and then as an administrator in a different district but similar demographics. So for me, being a connected leader, it means that I am now given the opportunity to learn from the perspectives of people in other types of environments, and that's been invaluable for me and my teachers and my students as well. So I always jump ahead of myself. So let's go back to the beginning. But I started blogging, and in the beginning I was very nervous about putting myself out there. I was nervous about my superintendent reading my blog, even though everything I wrote on my blog was professional. It was my thinking about topics like PLCs or planning efforts, PD, discipline and behavioral management in school. So all professional topics, but it did include my personal beliefs about it. And so I often wondered, what would he think about it if he knew I had a blog? And this was in the very beginning, so I was nervous about it. And I would say that's a common fear of administrators who are just jumping into connected education. They're thinking, I don't want to put myself out there like that, because it does require you to be a bit vulnerable. But if we're being honest about ourselves, when you are a learner, you are vulnerable, and you are admitting that there are things you need to learn and things you need to grow on, and things you need to process. We ask our teachers to do it every day, reflect on the lessons that they teach. We ask our kids to do it every day. So we as school leaders need to do the same thing, and we need to be willing to admit, I don't know it all. Here are my thoughts about where we're going, and here's what we're going to do to be better. So initially on my blog, I did not list my name. I didn't list my school district or anything like that. And so I was at a leadership conference, a technology leadership conference in 2009, and Will Richardson was the keynote. And if you had the opportunity to read his work or follow his work, I highly recommend it. He does a lot to kind of ignite school leaders, push them to think differently about what school is, what we want it to be for our kids. And we were sitting in this large conference room as he was keynoting, and he brought up the idea of blogging, and he asked the room, do any of you blog? And it was a room full of school leaders. And I looked around kind of nervously, and I put my hand up in the air very slowly, and he said, oh, okay, what's your blog's URL? And I was like, why? Why do you want to know what my blog's address is? And so we were in the room with the 3 giant screens in the front projecting his keynote slides and everything, and he pulled up my blog. So then I'm like shrinking down in my seat even more, just very nervous about what was going to happen. And he started pointing out parts of my blog that he thought were good. Like I included hyperlinked resources to the things I was reading or talking about, and I had a list of tags and categories on the side to help organize. But he said, the one thing that I will recommend that you need to do if you want to take this blogging to the next level is you need to be transparent. If I'm a reader on your blog, I don't know how to contact you. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you work. I don't know how to get in touch with you, an email address, and that's what's missing here. You're not being transparent in your blogging and your learning. So from that point on, I added my name to the blog. I had my email address there so anyone could contact me if they had follow-up information. And it kind of empowered me that day to be open in my learning and share what I was doing honestly and upfront with anybody in my school community. My superintendent, I didn't care if he read it. Parents in my school. I often get questions from school leaders like, aren't you worried that parents are going to read your blog? And no, I'm not worried, because if I'm very open and honest about the types of things that I believe in education, and that the things I feel about kids, when we sit down together or when we meet together, it becomes that much easier to communicate with them because they know where I'm coming from. They understand my perspectives on things. Whoa, this has a timer. Wait, let me move it. Okay. That was funny. So for me, again, being in front of the information, sharing things out, being proactive in sharing is really important. So if there are any superintendents in the room, I have attempted a few times to get my superintendent to blog, and I just would say to him, don't you want to be in front of the information? Rather than have trickle-down effect, gossip-type trains about decisions that are being made in central office or changes that you're making in the school, wouldn't you rather be upfront about it? For instance, if there's some kind of redistricting going on, wouldn't you want to publish in your own words what exactly the decision was, why it was made, how it's going to impact teachers and kids and families, and you put that out, rather than having somebody talk at the grocery store, talk at church about what's going on, and hearing only part of the story. If you're publishing what's going on, you are controlling the message. And so that's one thing I like to share in regards to blogging. So that was how I first started becoming more transparent in what I was sharing. And for me, the sharing really took off when I started using Twitter. So I would take my blog post and I would link it out in a tweet, and I would just put a little description or a title and say what I was sharing about. Now I hear an echo. Are you guys okay? And then that would bring readers to my blog. Make sure my connection. And through Twitter, I was able to connect with people who were. Do you hear an echo, or is it just me?
No, you keep going.
Yeah, you're a new parent. You're tired. Okay. There's no echo.
Okay. I hear it, but so what I do, I hear myself after I say it. So it's kind of. I'm going to go through. Here we go. So I would share out using hashtags like chat or CP chat. For those of you that are administrators in the room, CP chat stands for Connected Principals Chat. So that is something that people who are in administrative roles share administrative topics and interests there. So Twitter is really where I started getting with individuals, because it would allow them to visit my blog, and it would allow them to leave a comment if they desired. But then what would happen is I would get to know people, where they live, their roles in education, and kind of the resources that they could offer me in my school community. Do you guys have any questions thus far? I want to see if it stops. I'm not sure why it's happening.
Are there any questions on the Padlet?
No questions on the Padlet. There's very little on the Padlet. I've made a couple things, and Mark made a comment. So if you want to place any questions on the Padlet, all you do is just double-click. You can write your name and then write any questions. To do that, and it's just a way to keep, as Lynn mentioned, it's a back channel, so a way to keep the information going, and then we have a shared document that we can look at.
Now you want to try your question.
Oh, is that okay? Thanks. Thank you.
Is there a question? One of them a question that we could pose to Lynn?
There's lots of like comments, lots of good stuff. No questions.
Okay.
Any say mores?
Oh yeah, there is, about how to start in a blog. Yeah, what do you what would be the first steps that you'd recommend, Lynn, for an administrator or leader to start a blog?
So the first thing I would do is check out some of the different platforms that are available, and decide what you're comfortable with. So one of them that's really is WordPress. It's the most sophisticated technical one, but once there's a lot you can do with it. A very easy one to start with EduBlogs. EduBlogs is built on a WordPress platform, but it's hosted by a company. Only works with teacher and administrator blogs. The whole purpose of life is to support educational blogging, and that's actually what we use for our K-12 blogs in your district. And then a third option would be Blog, which is part of the Google Apps for Education. So if you already have a Google account, you already have a Blogger account. So if you check out different ones that are out there, I can share some examples with David from each platform, so you can get an idea about what's involved with each. I just sounded like a robot there. That was awesome. I have a can you hear me, or is it like robot?
It's going in and out a little bit, but just keep talking.
Okay. I use a self-hosted WordPress, meaning I pay to host my own domain name, like linhilt.com, and then I use a WordPress theme that runs on that. But you wouldn't have to even go there yet. WordPress is free to join to start. Blogger, free to join. Obviously, if you have a Google account. And EduBlogs, there are free accounts available as well. So that would be my first thing to do, is pick what you're comfortable with, the format, and start there. Once you're comfortable posting and you've done 1 or 2 posts, the next step would be to share it out in a certain space. If you all are connected locally, if you want to start by locally sharing your posts, maybe through some kind of, maybe if you are using Google Apps, if you set up a shared document where you link out to all of your blogs and you can visit them that way and comment, or if you're ready to them, you know, something I always encourage new bloggers to do is to reach out to somebody who's kind of established on Twitter that has a following to share their posts. When I teach a grad class, I always ask my new bloggers to send me their posts so I can share that out on Twitter, because if they're dealing with like 100 followers or 50 followers, then 50 people are seeing their posts. If I share it out, that amplifies their reach, and they're more likely to see someone to see their post. You're not going to have hundreds of readers when you first start blogging, and honestly, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about your own reflection and your thinking through the ideas. But if the more dedicated you are in sharing your posts, the readership will come. I would say by my 2nd year of blogging, I had a pretty regular readership. And now, honestly, blogging has taken a turn where more people are likely to retweet your post or share your post and less likely to comment. It's just kind of this phase we're going through. Because of the time and commitment it takes to blog, it's a lot easier to like something on Facebook or reshare it on Facebook or retweet it than it is to comment. But I do try to comment at least 5 times a week on other people's blogs because I know it is important, and it really helps keep the conversation going too. So that would be my recommendation for just getting started blogging. In terms of, did you have a question?
Related to Twitter, if you could talk a little bit more on the power of Twitter, and if you have some examples of how using Twitter has impacted your practice and your learning.
Okay. So for Twitter, like I said, I started out by following hashtag chats. So there are a number of educational hashtags out there, like hashtag EdChat, for example, where even if you're not a Twitter user, you can follow a stream of information that uses the hashtag EdChat, and you can read educational tweets that other people post. And that's how I first got hooked on Twitter, was during an actual EdChat. Certain chats have synchronous live conversations around the hashtag. So on Tuesdays, for example, at noon Eastern and 7 p.m. Eastern is a live EdChat. And there are questions posted in advance, a topic posted in advance, and anyone who's interested in joining in that conversation can tweet and then include the hashtag EdChat in their response, and then it will show up in the stream of tweets. So you can essentially just sit there and read a conversation emerging around a shared topic. And when that happened for me the first time, I was so amazed, like looking at this, thinking, we are from all over the world. We're all having a conversation about a shared topic of interest in education using Twitter. It was just crazy to me, because when I first started Twitter, it was actually in 2007. And I thought it was just nonsense, like many of you probably do. Like the celebrity tweets, the constant tweets about, you know, just from anything and anywhere, because it's a public space. Anyone can contribute to it, and that's part of the beauty of it. But it's also part of what makes Twitter so noisy. So your job for using it as an educator is to kind of filter out that noise. So making sure you're following really quality people, people who are adding to your learning, people who share great resources, and then taking the time to unfollow people that don't add to your learning. I follow something like 2,500 people, and I would say maybe 500 of them regularly contribute things that I even care about. And I have to take the time to weed through that to make sure that I'm following people who add to my learning. One of the best things you can do once you establish a Twitter account is follow like 20 really good contributors. And if David hasn't recommended some yet, I can definitely give you a list of people. I recommend about 30 people that are really solid educators or in the field of education or in the field of kind of innovative thinking that can push your thinking and fill up your home feed with good resources. But then what eventually you're going to do is you're going to connect with personalities. You're going to connect with people who can make your jobs as administrators a little bit easier, a little bit richer. Here's an example. My second year in the principalship, I was also the tech integrator. It was like a double role. I had to write student blogging guidelines. That was one of my jobs to do. And I sat there to write it, and I thought, somebody has already written these. Like, why am I reinventing the wheel? These exist somewhere. So I tweeted out, I need elementary student blogging guidelines. Please share anything you have. And I'd say within 25 minutes, I had a set of beautifully designed blogging guidelines that were licensed for reuse. I just tweaked them a little bit to fit our school's needs, and then I published them, and I was done. So things like that, connecting resources to the people who need them. Like all the time I have teachers who need something about a certain content area or curricular area, and I'll tweet out, I'm looking for PBL activities surrounding the topic of communities. And then within an hour I'll have something that I can go on. Or connecting your teachers with other people for collaborative projects, connecting your classrooms with other classrooms for collaborative projects. Those are the types of things that are really meaningful. And in addition, the personal side, you're really going to get to know the people that you're interacting with. And as an administrator, it can be a very lonely place, as you know, if you're an administrator. It's nice to have that support system, people who know what you're going through, people who know the incredible weight on your shoulders on a daily basis, the management you're trying to balance with the leadership piece. You know, and nobody really understands that unless they live it. So one of the greatest things to me for Twitter was finding, you know, 10 or 20 people who eventually became my best friends in terms of the educational realm, people I could go to if I was stuck with an issue with a parent or with a curricular issue, and just say, what did you do about this, or how would you approach this? Having that support system has been wonderful. And you hear people talk about their PLN, their personal learning network, and you know, it becomes just more of like, it initially exists on the side as like something you only do with your professional life, but as you get to know the human beings behind the resource sharing and the ideas that are being shared, they really do become part of your life, you know, and you develop friendships with people, you get to meet them at conferences, and it's just kind of an incredible thing. So Twitter, definitely check out hashtags of interest, and make sure in your Twitter profile you identify yourself as an educator and you list your title. When I see someone new follow me on Twitter, if I don't know who they are, like if I can't figure out if they're an educator or what their deal is, I never follow them. I mean, if you're looking for people to connect with you and follow you back, make sure that you identify yourself, your role, and what you're passionate about, and I guarantee you'll be able to find some great people to connect with on Twitter. Does that help?
Yeah, I think you've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much, Lynn. Can you all give Lynn a virtual hand? And so we'll definitely share some of those EdChat hashtags to follow, as well as some of the leaders that you follow and that the folks here should follow. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'll be following up with you too as well. So
okay, definitely. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.